Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. Things are getting back in swing here in Israel, thank God. It looks like the worst is over, but who really knows? We must all be vigilant, both physically and spiritually. If anything, this pandemic has taught us is that life is precious and we must guard it with our lives. This week is the holiday of Shavuot. This is the middle holiday of the three so-called pilgrimage festivals from the Bible. Passover, or Pesach, is exactly 50 days before Shabbat, which comes one day after the counting of 7 full weeks. This is the meaning of the word Shavuot, weeks. It originally was a harvest festival, but over the last 2,000 or so years, it has come to be associated with the giving of the Torah to the Israelites on Mount Sinai. About 4 months after Shavuot comes Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, either the final festival of the year or the first of the new year, depending on how one reckons the months of the year. In any case, Shavuot comes this year on this Thursday night and Friday in Israel, and continues onto Shabbat outside of Israel. It is a time to be grateful for the blessings we have and to have hope for the future. Speaking of blessings, we have a classic in this week's Parsha, at least in Israel, which is called Naso and means something on the order of lift or count. This strange title refers to the continuing census in the Torah, which has moved into a more detailed count of the families of Levites, those who served in the tabernacle and the temple. There are many subjects in this rather long parsha. It is the longest in the Torah. Included is a long section dealing with the suspected adulteress, and the equally long section dealing with the person who wishes to become a Nazir, the scaled-down Jewish version of a monk. Well, both of these types of things were probably pretty rare in biblical times, and even rarer after. They are given lengthy places in the Torah for reasons that are not all that clear. After both, however, comes a rather short section that seems like it should have been given more time. It is quite famous, depending on what one pays attention to, and is quite beautiful. In fact, it is worded so beautifully that it seems almost out of place in the Torah, especially after this long census and these two long sections dealing with obscure topics. Immediately after this short section is an even longer, very repetitive recounting of the various offerings that the leaders of each tribe brought for the ceremony of the dedication of the tabernacle. To many, this little section seems like a breath of fresh air. What does this section deal with? It is a blessing and nothing more. It is introduced as the blessing that the priest or Kohen, Aaron, or his descendants should bless the Israelites with throughout the future. This blessing, believe it or not, has probably been faithfully recited for over 3,000 years. In fact, one of the oldest examples of Hebrew writing was found right outside the walls of Jerusalem about 40 years ago, with this very blessing inscribed on a piece of ancient foil. This is almost certainly the longest running continuously recited blessing in the world. Every morning in most synagogues in Israel, and also in many Sephardic synagogues outside of Israel, and in most synagogues in the world on Jewish holidays, one can hear this blessing recited by those very descendants of Aaron, the Kohanim. If one is perceptive enough and fortunate to be present, one may also hear this blessing being given by Jewish parents to their children on Friday evening before the Shabbat meal. Not only that, but it can be heard in Fiddler on the Roof when that very scene is reenacted. Not only that, but a short version can be heard in the famous Bob Dylan song, Forever Young. What is this blessing? It goes like this. May God bless you and keep you. May God shine his presence upon you and show you grace. May God lift his presence upon you and give to you peace. That's it. Just 3 relatively short verses, but they say just about everything that a blessing is supposed to say, at least if it is Jewish-based. 3 short verses that really bless a person with everything that they really need in life. This blessing is a gold mine for those who are looking for treasures in the form of blessings. Not every treasure is a blessing, but every blessing is a treasure. What does it all mean? Let's take it apart a little, at the risk of spoiling the simple beauty of the verses themselves. May God bless you and keep you. Is there any way of blessing a person better than this? Perhaps there is. And perhaps those next two verses fill in whatever is missing from this verse. But it sure isn't easy to figure out what is missing. May God bless you. According to Judaism, all blessings come from God. They don't come from the priestly Kohanim or rabbis or holy men or even parents hoping for the best for their children. Blessings come from God. Whenever any one of those people blesses someone else, they are nothing more than a channel through which God's blessing may come. This is because true blessing can only come from the source of blessing and from nothing else. This is where God comes in. God is the true and only source of blessing. This is the reason Jews are always blessing God in some way, to acknowledge this simple fact. To be blessed is to sense that life has purpose and is good in some profound way. That purpose and that good may not fit all that well with modern versions of purpose and good, but that may be a problem with those modern versions. Is it really all about money or fame or looks or power? Is there nothing more to life than food, the internet, and a good car? Are those things really blessings, or are they nothing more than props with which to get through life? To receive God's blessing is to sense the true purpose of life. This is true goodness. May God keep you. We live our lives, whether we are aware of it or not, hanging by a thread. Anything could happen to us at any time. A car crash, a heart attack, coronavirus, a meteorite falling on the house. What is it that keeps us alive? There is no question that health and smart living and having something to live for play major roles. But at the end of the day, it is God that keeps us going. Without God's reality, we wouldn't even be dead. We would be non-existent. Good luck with that one. May God shine his presence upon you. God doesn't merely keep us alive and send a blessing our way once in a while. God also has a presence. That presence is frequently pretty invisible. In fact, it is so invisible that most people doubt its existence. But that doesn't mean that it isn't there. It is no different from the signal that gets to your cell phone. We cannot see it or feel it or hear it or smell it, but we sure know that it is there when we get a phone call or send a text. God's presence, like the phone signal, needs a special device in order to be detected. That device is called the soul. The soul has a kind of antenna for God's presence that tells us when it is around. This blessing is encouraging the signal to be strong enough that we can sense it. God shining his light or presence upon us is God's way of ramping up that signal. May God show you grace. Grace is one of those very Christian words that Jews tend to avoid. But this is a bit unfortunate because we are all in need of God's grace. Grace means that we somehow sense that we have been given a little bit extra, more than we deserve. It is blessing on steroids. We all want this, but we are frequently reluctant to ask for it. How can we ask for something that we don't deserve? Well, grace just comes as part of God's general package. Deserving or not, we may get it. True grace does not come in the form of winning the lottery or having a beautiful body. It is the awareness that one has been graced. May God lift his presence upon you. In English translation, this sounds almost like the first part of the previous verse. Shine or lift up. What's really the difference? Well, for one thing, the verse one is pretty obvious when it happens. It is not all that difficult to sense that a light is being shown upon us, whether that light is physical or metaphorical. But for God to lift up his presence is a different matter altogether. Perhaps the solution to this problem, this riddle, lies in understanding what God's presence really is. It is that signal, but it is more. It is also the sense that the signal touches us personally in some way that makes us take notice. The world goes on turning no matter what we do. Time goes on regardless of our awareness of it. But once in a while, that perpetual movement and that eternal ticking is interrupted by something that jars us into realizing that there is more to the universe than the universe. This extra little bit comes in the form of God's presence. Something unexpected or unusual happens that may be quite subtle, that rises above the hum and clatter of normal existence, which alerts us to this sense, which alerts us to this extra element. This is God's presence being lifted up. May God give you peace. Peace is what we all want, whether it be from real wars or wars that go on within our minds. But somehow it never seems to be there. This is a great mystery of life. Why is there such a lack of peace? It seems like it would be so easy to just put down the weapons or cast away the problems and attain either peace on earth or peace of mind. What always gets in the way? Perhaps it truly is the way of the world to not be at peace, whether on a national or individual level. Perhaps this is simply the way we were made, but that does not mean that peace is not attainable. It just won't happen through so-called normal means, no matter how hard we try. It requires that little extra bit, that lifted up presence of God to bring it to fruition. It may not satisfy everyone to recognize that true peace requires something supernatural, but that doesn't make it any less true. If this was the only way we could get it, wouldn't it still be worth it? These blessings come right in the middle of all kinds of other things that really have nothing to do with blessings. That's the way it has to be. Blessings are found in the oddest of places, buried in the earth, or in the middle of a crossword puzzle. They may be found in everyday conversation or in the back of a box of herbal tea. But they are there, and we have to find them. They are the smallest of things in life, but they are also everything in life. Isn't it about time that we all counted our blessings and recognized them as such? Shabbat Shalom, and let us celebrate with joy.